and welcome to the Bible for Worship at St. Paul Lutheran Church on this 16th Sunday after Pentecost, when our scripture reading is written in the letter of James, chapter 3, verses 1 through 5 and 9 through 11. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers and sisters, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For all of us make many mistakes. Anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is perfect, able to keep the whole body in check with a bridle. If we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we guide their whole bodies. Or look at ships. Though they are so large that it takes strong winds to drive them, yet they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also, the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great exploits. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse those who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and brackish water? The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Here we are in the letter to James, a book that has been characterized, as we've heard in the Bible for Worship already in this series, as Christian wisdom. So we come now to more Christian wisdom, how to live well in the world, with this discussion of our language, of our speech, under the figure of our tongue. At the outset, the author of James issues a caution actually about teaching, a profession in which the author sees him or herself participating, and alerting the readers to the expectation that professionals are held to a higher standard. And so while the speech of any individual might come under some judgment, the speech of a teacher will come under a different standard of judgment, because the teacher is expected to use language, speech, the tongue well. And then that idea pushes on into a reflection on the power of the tongue. One might see an analogy here. The author doesn't make it, but we can imagine that if the eye is taken to be the window of the soul, then perhaps one could say that the tongue is the door to the conscience. When you open it, when you open the mouth and use the tongue, you open up the whole direction of your life and your morality to those who are listening. The tongue boasts of great exploits, and yet it also reveals deep secrets about us. And so just as controlling a horse can be done by putting a bit and bridle into its mouth, and controlling a ship can be done with the smallest little piece of wood or metal as a rudder, so the guidance of our whole lives requires careful attention to that smallest of organs, perhaps, the tongue. And then the writer of James makes a very interesting turn, because the writer points out that not only can the tongue reveal much about us, but there's a way in which the tongue can be used, on the one hand, to bless God, and on the other hand, to curse those who are created in the image of God. And here, the author is not talking just about morality or conscience. The author talks about nature. What is natural to the tongue, to our speech, and what is not? So as the author had turned to the horse to talk about the bit and the bridle, and had turned to the winds that drive ships in order to talk about the rudder, so here the author turns to the image of a fresh water spring, something common in nature, something on which the readers would have been dependent for life, and carefully in tune with how a freshwater spring could turn brackish and become actually dangerous to life. So with this image from nature about the freshwater spring and whether from the same opening fresh, clear water and brackish water can come, the author asks, can you pour venom on any person made in God's image, and at the same time, with the same mouth, hope to pour honey in your prayers and blessings to God? This isn't just about choice or conscience or morality. This is unnatural. This ought not to be so, the author says. It is not how we have been made. And so we realize that here too, in the letter of James, as in the Gospel of John, as in images from Luke of Jesus in wisdom, as the figure of wisdom teaching the teachers in the temple, so here in the letter of James, there's a connection between wisdom and creation. Wisdom, which Proverbs 8 says was the architect at God's side shaping the creation, now comes in this letter of James to say, look at nature, and we can learn about ourselves. God bless.